Discover the heartwarming moment a billionaire encounters his ex and their twins seeking shelter. The winter air was frigid, biting hard against Jake's face as he drove his luxury car through the familiar streets of his hometown. Snowflakes danced in the headlights, weaving a quilted blanket over the concrete. He had everything: money, success, the world at his fingertips, but tonight, he felt emptier than he ever had. The laughter of families celebrating nearby echoed in his mind, drowning him in memories of laughter shared with Sarah, his high school sweetheart. Suddenly, a flicker caught his eye: a local shelter, where people huddled for warmth. As the headlights illuminated the scene, Jake's heart raced. There, standing outside in the swirling snow, was Sarah, worn but resilient, holding the hands of two little girls. His twin daughters, Emma and Mia. They stood close to her, eyes wide with uncertainty. The sight knocked the breath from his lungs. In that moment, Jake was transported back to those late-night talks in the garage, dreaming about their future together. The sound of tools clinking, their infectious giggles, and the feeling of promise in the air. But how had it all come to this? He had climbed to heights unimaginable, yet here was Sarah, embodying strength, struggling as a single mother. His chest tightened. Would they recognize him? The distance that wealth had created now seemed staggeringly vast, that he fought against the well of conflicting emotions. Anger twisted in his gut. What kind of father had he become? Wealthy, but distant. A stranger more than a dad. In their eyes, the innocence shimmered, laced with fear. It struck him with heavy conviction that he needed to help, yet self-doubt clawed at him. Was he simply a rich man trying to play Superman for a family he abandoned? Before he could make a move, chaos erupted nearby. A pipe burst in a building, sending icy water into the streets and creating a frigid splash of reality. The oohs and ahs from bystanders sliced through the silence. The tender moment was shattered. Jake's throat felt tight as he witnessed where hope clashed with despair, reminding him of how fragile life truly is. It was a cold, harsh reminder that even the richest man could lose it all in an instant. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake's heart thundered as he stepped out of the car, catching Sarah's eye. Time seemed to stand still, the past and present colliding in a single breath. He approached, each step heavy with uncertainty, yet fueled by a flicker of hope. Would they be able to bridge the gap of missed years? Change was calling, and with their daughters' innocent gazes perched in the background, Jake realized he had a choice. Could he confront his past, redefine what being a family meant, and forge a united front with Sarah? His hand hovered for a moment, hesitating before reaching for hers, simmering with potential. Would forgiveness wash away years of regret? With so much on the line, he felt the air crackle with urgency, and for the first time, he could almost see a future unburdened by the shadows of yesterday. Just then, he waited, breathless, as if the answer held within those four small voices was poised to shape their lives forever. The moment their hands touched, a spark ignited. Something deep within Jake stirred, a feeling long buried beneath layers of denial and guilt. Sarah's grip was gentle but firm, a reassurance that echoed with unspoken words. He could see the weariness in her eyes, the struggles of a life carved alone, but there was also a fire. A flicker of the old Sarah, the one he had fallen in love with all those years ago. What are you doing here? Her voice trembled, part surprise, part caution. The girls pulled closer to her, their little bodies like shields. I saw you outside. I wanted to know if you're okay. Jake stammered, his own uncertainty gnawing at him. Here he was, a billionaire, standing in the snow, under the harsh glow of streetlights, torn between wanting to protect them and the fear of being rejected. Sarah studied him. Okay? You think I'm okay? Look at us, Jake. Her gesturing hand indicated the shabby shelter and the kids who hugged her tightly. It's not how we planned, is it? The weight of her truth hit him harder than any punch ever could. Memories rushed back, every dream they had woven together, every promise of a happy family. He had let fortune take him away, and now the consequences were clear. "You're right," he managed, shame creeping into his voice. Mia, eyes wide as saucers, tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Mommy, who's that?" Jake kneeled, his heart racing as he faced the twins. A pair of identical faces gazed back, mixing curiosity with a hint of wariness. "Hi. I'm your dad. I've missed you both so much." His voice cracked, ringing with a vulnerability he rarely showed to anyone. "Dad?" Emma whispered, her brow furrowing in confusion. "But we don't know you." The words cut Jake sharper than he anticipated. "I know. I haven't been around. But I promise, I'm here now. I'll do better. I want to do better." He glanced at Sarah, willing her to see his sincerity. The silence stretched, thick with a mix of hope and uncertainty. Sarah's eyes reflected pain, but also a glimpse of potential. "Better how? You have everything now. We've survived without you, Jake." His heart ached at her words. "You shouldn't have had to. I wish I could take it all back. You and the girls deserve stability, love, everything." With one swift motion, Sarah pulled her daughters close, a protective stance that spoke volumes. "And where were you when we were struggling? When we had nothing?" Jake fought against that sinking feeling. "I was living a life that felt hollow. I thought climbing that ladder would bring happiness somehow. I thought it would help you too. But I see how wrong I was." As the words left his lips, he saw a flicker of understanding dance in Sarah's eyes. Her expression softened just a little, but the walls remained sturdy. "You can't just waltz back in with grand gestures and expect us to forgive everything." "I know," he replied, swallowing hard. "But I want to help. I can help. Just give me a chance. For us. For them." A shiver ran through the air, thick with anticipation. The world around them faded, only their breaths and the snowflakes drifting down felt real. "What do you want, Jake?" Sarah pressed, her voice firm yet vulnerable, the tension between them electric. "I want to be a father," he breathed, "and a partner. If you'll let me." As hope flickered between them, Jake wondered if they could navigate this unsteady ground together. Could they really start anew? Could he truly win back the trust of Sarah and the love of his daughters? Before he could probe further, a gust of wind howled, sending snow swirling around them. Jake shivered, not from the cold, but from the weight of everything at stake. Would Sarah let him in? And more importantly, could they begin to heal the wounds of the past? A small voice broke the hush. "Can we get hot chocolate?" Mia asked, her innocence both a comfort and a challenge. Before he could respond, Sarah glanced at him, searching his gaze with a hint of vulnerability. Maybe that's a start." But just as he opened his mouth to speak, a group of familiar faces burst through the shelter door. Jake's heart plummeted as he recognized the men who had always viewed him as competition. His past flickered uncomfortably as they locked eyes. Would their presence threaten the fragile connection he had just begun to rebuild, or could he finally forge a new path forward? The wind howled again, pushing cold air around them as Jake's gaze darted to the newcomers. He recognized them instantly, his old business partners and friends, the sort of men who thought wealth defined worth. They were dressed in tailored coats, likely from a lavish night out, unaware of the storm brewing in Jake's chest. "What's this?" One of them sneered, his eyes narrowing on the tiny shelter. "Come to visit the less fortunate, Jake?" Jake gritted his teeth, resisting the urge to lash out. His focus flickered back to Sarah, who remained tense, her girls still pressed close to her. He could see the confusion on their faces, the innocent fear ignited by the presence of their father's past. "Just catching up," Jake managed, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a show of confidence. "Catching up, huh?" Another chimed in, humor laced with sarcasm. "Does she come with a side of guilt?" A flame ignited in Jake. Dissonance echoed in his heart. He was no longer the man they assumed he was, a shell of a person drowning in wealth. He felt a surge of protection for Sarah and the girls. "You don't understand," he said, inching closer, the snow crunching beneath his feet. "I'm here for them. That's what really matters now." Sarah shot him a glance, a mixture of surprise and something else. Was it trust? The pressure of judgment from the men seemed to dissipate, if only slightly. "Right," one man scoffed, crossing his arms. "And what's a billionaire doing in a place like this? Don't think you can buy your way back into their hearts." "Maybe not, but I sure as hell want to try," Jake said, his voice steady as the cold air pressed on him. "Their life has always been important to me, even when I wasn't present." "You think that matters?" Another shouted, derision tinting his voice. "You can't just walk in and pretend everything is fine." Every word felt like a hammer but brought clarity. "I know that I messed up. I'm not asking for forgiveness right this moment. I just want to show my girls that I'm willing to change, that we can be a family again." The men exchanged glances, skepticism etched on their faces. But behind them, an unexpected sound broke their criticism, Mia giggling as she stumbled in the snow. Emma pointed and laughed too. The sound floated up, innocent and pure. Jake's heart twisted. He knelt before his daughters, locking eyes with the girls who seemed to be catching on to the tension but were more intrigued by the falling snow. "Look at that," he said, gesturing to the flakes dancing in the streetlight's glow. "Can you believe how beautiful it is? Can we make a snowman?" Mia jumped in, eyes wide with excitement. "Yeah," Emma chimed, the fear melting from her face. A wave of warmth washed over Jake. Their laughter was a lifeline, pulling him back from the brink. He raked his gaze over Sarah, who looked calmed but guarded. "Would you let me help with that?" he asked, searching for an opening to bridge the gap. "No," one of the men barked, stepping forward. "This isn't a play area, Jake. Get your act together first." The harsh tone hung in the air, stealing the lightness the girls had brought. Jake clenched his fists, frustration boiling. They threatened both the fragile moment he had with Sarah and the happiness blooming between him and his daughters. But he had a vision now, a vision of healing, of connection. "I will. I promise," Jake stated, looking over his shoulders at the twins who held his gaze. "I'll prove to everyone that I can be here, especially for them." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed down the street as a nearby sign toppled over, startling everyone. "Let us go home, Mommy," Mia squeaked, clutching her mother's leg, innocence radiating optimism. Sarah's eyes softened further, the protective mother too aware of the challenges ahead. "All right." She glanced at Jake, weary yet hopeful. "But we have to take it one step at a time." Jake nodded, determination bubbling within him. The night air cooled around them, but he felt sunlight breaking through the clouds. "I'm ready for that. Whatever it takes." As they started to move toward the shelter, he stole a glance back at the men, their expressions mingling disbelief and disdain. But Jake had a new purpose. "Tomorrow then?" He tossed over his shoulder, his voice stronger than ever. "I'll be back, ready to help build that snowman." Would they see him as more than just a past mistake? Could he turn old wounds into new beginnings for his girls? The faces behind him were fading, shadows growing distant, but Jake wouldn't let the moment slip away. Tomorrow could be the start of something beautiful, rebuilding the family they had lost. Or would the past still haunt his every step as he tried to move forward? The next morning broke with an eerie calmness, the storm having passed, leaving behind a blanket of glittering white. Jake wrapped his coat tighter around him, taking in the beauty of the world transformed overnight. But as he stepped outside, the weight of yesterday clung to him like a chill, shadowing any warmth the sun might offer. That he thought of Sarah and the twins, the way they had laughed despite the tension, how Mia's innocent question about a snowman still rang in his ears. That spark of joy was precisely what he wanted to nurture. With renewed resolve, he made his way toward the shelter, memories of the night before urging him on. As he approached, he spotted Sarah setting up some chairs outside, her breath visible in the cold air. She glanced up, surprised to see him already there. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her features, but then it smoothed into a gentle, guarded smile. "Morning," Jake said, trying to sound braver than he felt. "Morning," she replied softly, folding her arms against the chill. "You're early." "I wanted to be here for them," he replied, glancing around. "And for you." Sarah studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. "You do realize this won't be easy, right?" Jake nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "I know. But I'm willing to try if you'll let me." "Trying might not be enough," she warned, her voice low, almost a whisper. "You can't just show up and think everything will fall into place." "I'm not expecting that," he rushed. "I just want to help. I want to be present. For you and the girls." Just then, the door swung open, and the twins burst out, their cheeks rosy, eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Daddy!" They squealed in unison. Jake's heart swelled at the sound of their laughter, the way they delighted in his presence. He knelt to their level, hugging them tightly. "Hey there, my snowflakes. Can we make a snowman now?" Mia asked, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Right now?" "You bet!" Jake exclaimed, standing up with renewed energy. Emma clapped her hands, and Sarah chuckled softly, the corner of her mouth turning up just enough for Jake to catch it. But he could still feel the tension that lay underneath her laughter. "Let us grab some supplies first," he suggested, scanning the nearby area. "We'll need a good pile of snow and maybe some sticks for arms." Jake led the way, pushing through the soft snow beside the girls, who hopped as if they were bouncing on clouds. Their excitement was infectious, washing away some of his doubt, but as they reached a clear area in the park, he noticed the older men from the night before watching from a distance. They lingered like dark clouds, their faces twisted into amused expressions, laughter bubbling just beneath the surface. "Are they really going to waste their time on a snowman?" One whispered to the others, laughter creeping into his voice as he gestured at Jake. Jake clenched his jaw, but then he looked down at Mia and Emma. They were busy gathering snow, their little hands grasping at the flakes, eyes full of joy. At that moment, everything else faded. The laughter, the sneers, the weight of his past felt lighter amidst their innocence. "Let us build it bigger than any snowman ever. 1, 2, 3. He cheered, gathering snow for the base, the twins eagerly contributing. As they shaped the snow, gluten-free laughter filled the air. But Sarah stood aside, watching. Her guard continued to linger like a shadow. "Sarah," Jake called out, pausing. "Will you join us?" Her eyes flicked between him and the girls. For a moment, vulnerability crackled in the air. "It'll take more than a snowman, Jake," she said quietly. "Then let us start with this one," he insisted. "And see where it leads." He watched as her resolve softened, the lines around her eyes relaxing. Slowly, she stepped into the circle, her hands gently mixing in the work. That moment, the brewing storms of yesterday began to melt away. What lay ahead was an open road, ripe with possibilities, but lurking just a whisper away was a voice, one that warned him. Would he truly be able to create something beautiful from fragments of the past? Would just one snowman be enough to thaw the long-held frost? As they rolled the snow into big, fluffy balls, laughter pierced the cold air. Jake felt a rush of hope. Together, they were bringing to life something meaningful. The soft crunch of snow underfoot was accompanied by the bright sounds of the twins, so full of life and ambition. It was almost intoxicating. With each layer of snow, Jake felt more connected to Sarah. As she laid the second round of snow, he noticed her smile grow a bit wider, just a touch brighter. It was a small victory, but it felt massive to him. He was more than a man running from his past, he was someone fighting for their future. Emma crouched down, inspecting their creation, her curious eyes shining. "Daddy, we need a hat. Can we find one?" Mia piped up, "And buttons. Can we put buttons on him too?" Jake laughed. "Absolutely. We need to dress him up like a real snowman." He looked over at Sarah, who was now leaning in, grabbing sticks for arms. She raised her eyebrows, an unspoken question hanging in the air. "Got any ideas for a hat?" he asked. "I might have something at the shelter," she replied slowly. There was a flicker of memory in her expression, a hint of the shared moments they once held dear. Time, it seemed, had not erased everything. As Jake helped them adorn their snowman with the supplies they gathered, he couldn't shake the feeling that each laugh echoed of paths yet taken, choices unmade. And then he noticed the men from before still watching, their laughter fading into head shakes and scoffs. "Look at them trying to play house," one sneered, just loud enough for Jake to hear. Anger flared for a moment, but he quickly glanced at the twins. Their bright eyes were fixated on their snowman, completely oblivious to the judgment unfolding. In that innocence, Jake found his strength. He turned back towards Sarah, who had started to shape a small snowball, her expression thoughtful. "Sarah, do you ever wonder if these moments are worth fighting for?" Her hands paused briefly, then she looked him directly in the eyes. "It's not just the moments that mean something, Jake. It's what we decide to do next." There was something fierce in her tone. A challenge. He felt that challenge settle deep within him. Just then, Mia interrupted, pulling at his arm. "Daddy, look. He needs a smile." Using the last bit of energy, they carefully placed small pebbles to create a face. It was a simple touch, but as they all stepped back to admire their creation, Jake couldn't help but feel a tiny spark of magic, the kind that says maybe they could build something more than just a snowman. "Let us call him Mr. Frosty," Emma shouted, her excitement spilling over, momentarily pushing aside any lingering tension. As the girls giggled, Jake caught a brief, unguarded smile from Sarah. That small slip of warmth ignited hope again. But beneath the surface, he felt the weight of what was left unsaid. Before he could speak, the sound of a distant horn cut through the air, drawing their gazes away from their masterpiece. Instinctively, Jake's heart raced. The stillness shattered, and a knot formed in his stomach. He knew the sound well, a reminder of things he couldn't escape. "What is that?" Mia asked, curious eyes wide. Jake swallowed hard, the exhilarating moment of earlier slipping abruptly back into shadow. "Let's check it out," he said, forcing a calm tone, but as they moved towards the sound, he wondered, would whatever lay ahead unravel the fragile threads they had begun to weave? Would it bring them closer, or rip them apart once more? And as they took those steps, Jake held his breath, knowing he was walking towards something that could change everything. The group trudged through the snow, each step crunching underfoot, the laughter of the twins fading as uncertainty loomed large. Jake's mind raced with memories, the look of fear, the sudden loss, the mistakes that had shattered their family. Every step toward the distant sound felt like a step toward the ghosts of his past. "Do you think it's a parade?" Emma chirped, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Maybe," Mia responded, tugging on Jake's coat to keep pace. Jake forced a smile, but his heart tightened. He wanted to shield them from any darkness ahead. He stole a glance at Sarah, her features marked with determination. She was still in the present, engaged with this moment of joy. Could he match her courage? As they reached the end of their small hill, the sound became unmistakable, a loud horn mixed with voices. Confusion washed over Jake as they broke through a cluster of trees and stumbled into view a local shelter, brightly lit and bustling with activity. Volunteers were unloading boxes, laughter intermingling with the sound of festive music, but among the warmth of that scene, movement caught his eye. A figure emerged from the crowd, one he recognized all too well, Jake's ex-business partner, Thomas, the man who had contributed to the fall of everything Jake had once built. "Jake!" Thomas exclaimed, surprise painting his face, but there was something else, an edge, a hint of spite. "Hello, Thomas," Jake said cautiously, taking a step back, instinctively positioning himself in front of Sarah and the twins. "Looks like you found quite the way to spend your weekend," Thomas sneered, nodding toward the snowman behind them. Jake kept his composure. "We're just trying to enjoy some family time," he replied, his voice steady. The twins, oblivious to the tension, were peering toward the commotion. "Daddy, can we help?" Mia asked, bouncing on her toes. "Hang on," Jake said, turning back to the shelter. It all felt overwhelming now. Happy families were everywhere, and here he was, tangled in a web of regret and anger. Just as the horn sounded again, then, unexpectedly, Sarah stepped beside him, her features softening as she looked at the gathering. Maybe they need more hands, she suggested, taking a deep breath. Jake watched her, feeling the warmth of her spirit push against his dark thoughts. Was it time to mend what was broken? Could a simple lesson from the twins lead to a greater understanding for them all? Come on, Jake said, feeling a tug of hope as he grasped Sarah's hand, squeezing it tightly. Just that small connection reminded him that they were still in this together. As they approached, the sound of laughter hit them again, wrapping around like a warm blanket. But the sharp delivery of Thomas's voice cut through it all. Nice to see you again, Sarah, he smirked. Finally escaped, have you? Jake felt a fire ignite in him, but before he could react, Sarah stepped forward, her expression fierce. Family matters, she stated firmly, her voice cutting through the icy air. There was a pause. The gravity shifted. Jake saw the twins gaze up at their mother with awe, and something about her strength filled him with admiration. For once, he didn't feel lost. But Thomas wasn't done yet. Family? Is that what you call this mess? His laugh was sharp, taunting in that moment. Jake took a breath, realizing the true test was on the horizon. Would he defend their family, or would he allow the shadows of his past to linger? As the tension crackled in the air, Jake had to decide. Would he let past animosities define his future, or could he finally turn a page? In that instant of silence, something felt about to change, for better or worse. And as he stood there, ready to confront the storm brewing around them, he imagined the warmth of home surrounding them again. But could it withstand the gusts of what was coming? Jake's resolve wavered as he stared at Thomas, each word slipping like ice down his spine. The laughter and excitement of the volunteers seemed light years away, replaced by the heavy sensations of betrayal and anger bubbling beneath the surface. The twins stood at his side, wide-eyed, unaware of the tempest swirling in their father's chest. Look, you don't know what we're dealing with, Jake said, forcing the words through clenched teeth. This is my family. We're trying to make the best of a tough situation. Thomas scoffed, crossing his arms, his smirk unmoved. Your family? Is that what you think? It's a nice little fairy tale you've created, Jake, but it doesn't cover up the reality. The air shaded cold, and Jake felt a wave of panic rise. He didn't want the twins to absorb any of this darkness. He turned slightly, ready to shield them further. But then Sarah's voice came, steady and fierce as she stepped right into the line of fire. Enough. We're here to help, and you can keep your judgment to yourself, Thomas. Her tone was unwavering, fierce enough to silence even the loudest critic. The twins glanced up at her, finding strength in her words. What is going on here? A new voice joined the fray, cutting through the tension. A broad-shouldered man approached, dressed in a volunteer-esque coat bustling with buttons. Hey, Jake. I didn't expect to see you. Everything okay? Jake glanced at Sarah, who gave him a slight nod. It was a lifeline in a storm, reminding him they were part of something bigger than this confrontation. Just some old business, Jake said, his tone softening. We were wondering how we could lend a hand. The broad-shouldered man smiled, relief sweeping over his features. That's great. We could use more people to help with setting up the holiday meals. The event's for spreading joy. Come on. He waved them over, the tension easing like the sun peeking through heavy clouds. As they moved past Thomas, Jake felt a surge of determination. We're not defined by our past mistakes, he whispered to Sarah, more for himself than her. She squeezed his hand tighter, the warmth lending him the courage he needed. Yeah, we're here for the twins, Sarah replied softly, her eyes sparkling with hope. And for each other. Everyone deserves joy, don't they? The twins bounded ahead, excitement surging through them, caught up in the festive spirit of the shelter. Laughter bubbled again, the sounds drowning out the remnants of conflict. Jake watched as Emma and Mia jumped right into the fray, helping to organize toys, filling their arms with cheerful colors and bright smiles. Suddenly, a familiar feeling washed over him, one of belonging, of hope. He turned back to Thomas, who now stood awkwardly, the tension in his expression cracking slightly. "You should join us," Jake suggested, the weight of the moment pressing upon him. "There's enough to go around. It's not just my family anymore, it could be ours." Thomas hesitated, the twinkle of nostalgia flickering in his eyes. It was a chance for redemption, or perhaps just a call to humanity buried beneath old scores, but before Thomas could respond, a loud horn blared from the shelter, signaling the start of the festivities. Joyful cheers erupted as volunteers engaged more people, inviting everyone to share in the warmth of the holiday spirit. As the crowd began to sway with music, Jake's heart thumped erratically. What if Thomas steps forward? What if this confrontation opens old wounds? And yet, in that moment, the fear faded slightly. The possibilities ahead felt vibrant and alive. With each step deeper into the shelter, a spark ignited, pulling Jake from the shadows. He glanced around at his family, at Sarah, and realized something big was on the horizon. Change was in the air, but so was growth. What would happen if Thomas chose separation over reconciliation? Or, could this be the beginning of understanding, even healing? As laughter rang through the air, Jake felt the ground shift beneath him, ready for a new chapter. But would it be one of unity, or would the past still haunt them all? The night promised many answers, but first, they had to be brave enough to face what lay ahead. Jake felt the music wash over him like a wave, each note resonating with a hope that pulled him forward. He followed the twins, their laughter echoing through the shelter, weaving into the fabric of joy that filled the room. Families, friends, volunteers, all of them united in the mission to spread kindness and warmth. Yet, the knot in his stomach hadn't quite loosened. As the twins danced, their small feet tapping with abandon, Jake found himself slipping back through time to moments with Thomas. Memories of old betrayals and broken promises hovered just outside his reach, serving as a reminder of the fractures in their past. He turned his gaze back to Sarah, who had already immersed herself in the festive chaos, handing out cookies and warm drinks with a bright smile. She was here, her spirit unyielded by lingering shadows, and that sparked a flicker of courage in Jake. "Jake!" A voice called, pulling him out of his thoughts. He turned to see the broad-shouldered man from before, now gesturing excitedly. "We need help moving tables for the meal. Can you lend a hand?" "Of course," Jake replied, feeling the eagerness of responsibility kick in. It was a welcome distraction. As he moved to help, glancing back at the twins, he couldn't help but smile. They were in their world of light and laughter, unaware of the weight that sometimes pressed down upon him. Just as he began to lift the table, a presence lingered near him. It was Thomas, hanging back, as if caught between wanting to join and being trapped by a past he couldn't shake. "You really think they'll be okay?" Thomas asked, his voice low, almost hesitant as he cast a glance toward the twins. Jake paused, meeting Thomas's gaze. "They are more than okay, they're thriving. Look at them." He nodded over at the girls who were now surrounded by other kids, their giggles ringing out like music. This is what they need: laughter, connection, love. They deserve to feel safe, especially during the holidays. "I didn't realize how much they've grown," Thomas admitted, the facade of indifference cracking slightly. "Time really flies. I've missed so much." Jake took a breath, feeling a momentary shift in the air between them. "You could still be a part of it, you know. We can face this together. The past doesn't have to repeat itself." Thomas ran a hand through his hair, frustration flickering in his eyes. "It's not that easy, Jake. You don't know the mistakes I've made. But what if this could be a step toward healing?" Jake pressed, his heart racing. "Can't we just try? For them? For us?" For a brief moment, silence enveloped them. The rhythm of the celebration continued around them, contrasting starkly with the weight of their conversation. Jake watched as animated conversations swirled, laughter echoing off the walls. Every so often, his gaze flitted back to Sarah, who was now bending down to help Mia tie her shoes, her face glowing with tenderness. It was contagious, that warmth. Maybe they could chart a new course together. But just as hope sparked, the crowd erupted. A familiar figure stepped into the shelter, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. Cassandra. The estranged wife. The twins' mother. With a presence that could draw everyone's eye, she stood in the entrance, gazing around, her expression inscrutable. Jake's heart sank and soared at once, emotions colliding within him. How would this impact their fragile balance? Would it shatter the moment they had begun to rebuild? He couldn't look away as Cassandra moved forward, her eyes scanning the room until they finally landed on him. The air shifted again, thick with anticipation. What would she say? What would happen next? With every heartbeat, uncertainty grew. The laughter, the joy, all it took was one moment to change everything. As the moment stretched on the edge of revelation, Jake sensed change was about to unfold. Would it lead them to a brighter future, or would it plunge them deeper into their troubled past? Jake's heart raced, caught in a whirlwind of emotions as Cassandra approached. Her blonde hair framed her face, but it was the intensity of her gaze that struck him most. It was the same way she used to look at him, searching, assessing, as if desperately trying to unravel the complexity of their lives. He remembered the warmth of her touch, how they had laughed, how they had built a life together once. Now, in the cheerful chaos of the shelter, everything felt different. The laughter of children and the aroma of freshly baked cookies felt almost mocking in contrast to the tension swirling around them. The air was electric, and every footstep Cassandra took seemed to echo, vibrating through his chest. "Jake," she finally said, her voice steady but carrying a tremor that reverberated through him like a bell. "I didn't expect to see you here." He wanted to answer, to articulate the mix of hurt and longing that tugged at him, but the words clung to his throat. Instead, he nodded, trying to project a calm he didn't feel. "It's a community event. We're helping out." Cassandra's eyes flickered to the twins, who were blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just a few feet away. Mia was trying to spin in circles, her laughter cascading through the room, and Lila was puffing out her cheeks in mock frustration while trying to keep up. "They've grown so much," she said softly. "Yes, they have," Jake replied. The ache in his chest deepened. Just a few moments ago, he felt a sense of unity fill the air. Now, the jagged edges of their broken family loomed large. Thomas shifted his weight uncomfortably beside Jake, clearly caught in the middle of the unfolding drama. Jake could sense the tension between the two men, the unspoken words flaring like heat in the air. Cassandra's presence stirred something dormant in Thomas, and Jake could only hope it did not ignite old grievances. Cassandra began but faltered, glancing toward the dancing twins again as if seeking strength in their joy. "I've missed so much. I just heard about the event and I thought maybe I could see them." "See them?" Jake echoed, shocked by the lack of remorse in her voice. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the choices that had led to the separation of their family. "You could have been here, been a part of their lives. We needed you." "I know," she said, sincerity creeping into her words. "I messed up. But I'm here now." The crowd thrummed around them, festive and vibrant, but Jake felt as though he was standing in a soundless bubble. Her admission hung between them, heavy and unresolved. What did it mean? Could they really put the pieces back together after everything that had happened? Thomas took a breath, as if he was ready to say something monumental. Cassandra turned to him, a flicker of confusion passing across her face. "I didn't think you would be here," she said, her tone uncertain. "I just want what's best for the twins," he replied, glancing at Jake, then back to Cassandra. "And if that means being a family, then I'm in." Jake's heart raced again, but this time it was different. It wasn't just about the fear of old wounds reopening. This was a chance. A chance for healing, perhaps, or at the very least a conversation worth having. The joyful noise of the shelter swirled around them, but all he could focus on was the uncertainty of what came next. Could they really move forward together? Could forgiveness and second chances mend what was broken? He glanced at the twins, oblivious and dancing, and then back at the two people who represented his fractured family. Suddenly, the laughter didn't feel so far removed from the vulnerability he was experiencing. Then, Cassandra reached out, her hand brushing against Jake's arm, a gesture both tentative and full of meaning. Let us talk. Please. As his breath hitched, he realized that what had begun as a festive gathering was turning into a pivotal moment for their lives. Would they embrace this moment together? But before Jake could respond, a shout erupted from one of the volunteers. Hey folks, the food is ready. Gather round. The distraction pulled them from the personal tension, but anticipation lingered like a smoldering ember. As everyone moved toward the tables laden with hope and warmth, Jake felt a bittersweet cocktail of emotions surge through him. What would happen when they finally faced the truths of their past? Would the twins be safe amidst their unraveling story? Jake stepped toward the tables, uncertainty clinging to him like a second skin. He glanced back at Cassandra and Thomas proudly standing in front of the twins, and a small flicker of hope ignited within him, but could that flicker become a flame, or would it extinguish under the weight of the past? The hot meal served in the shelter seemed to warm more than just their bellies. It ignited memories, interlaced with laughter and the potential for new beginnings. Jake watched as families gathered around tables, buzzing with life and joy. Emma and Mia were sitting with Sarah, their faces lit up with the simple pleasure of food as they shared their excitement with each other. Cassandra, on the other hand, hung back, her eyes darting around as if searching for a place to belong. Jake felt a pull at his heartstrings. This was a moment meant for celebration, and yet shadows lingered in the corners. The gentle laughter of children intertwined with whispered conversations of adults brought clarity, a sense of normalcy amid the chaos they had all created. After a few moments, he decided to approach Cassandra. He saw her flinch slightly as he approached, a sign she was equally aware that this moment wasn't just about being present, it was about acknowledging the past together. Cassandra, he started, his voice steady but soft. The girls adore you. They've missed you. Cassandra's eyes glistened with tears as she glanced back at the twins, who were gently fighting over who could have the first brownie. I've messed up so much, Jake. I know I've let them down, she said, haltingly. I'm not the person I was. He could feel a sorrow that echoed in her words. Neither am I, he admitted. But we have a chance here, right now, to rebuild. A silence fell between them, heavy with unspoken promises. Moments earlier, they had been lost to the bitterness of grievances, but now their shared vulnerability wrapped around them like a familiar blanket. I want to be a part of their lives, she finally said, an earnestness flaring in her eyes. If they allow it. Jake's heart quickened at the thought. Could they truly heal together? It's not just up to me. You will need to earn their trust back, and Sarah's, too, he stated, glancing over to see Sarah engaging with the twins. Cassandra's gaze followed his. Is Sarah okay with this? He sighed, a mix of anger and understanding tangled within him. There's a lot of hurt there. I won't act like it was all sunshine and rainbows. But I do believe they can become a family, we all can. It may not be easy, but it starts with honesty. Suddenly, Mia dashed toward them, arms extended and wide eyes sparkling. Mommy. Can we have a dance party? The innocence in her request dissolved the tension in the air, bringing a fleeting smile to both Jake's and Cassandra's faces. That sounds like a great idea. Cassandra exclaimed, dropping down to Mia's level, her warmth visibly melting her reservations. Can I join? Emma pleaded as she hopped on one foot, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Jake's heart swelled as he watched the sisters pull their mother into the joyous fold, as they danced among the volunteers, united by pure, unfiltered joy. Here was a spark, a moment when all was right in the world, even if just for a heartbeat. A few steps away, Jake could see Sarah standing with her arms crossed, her eyes narrowing slowly as she observed the new dynamic unfolding. Would she see that this moment was a step toward healing and not a threat? Cassandra, he said softly, breaking away from the joyful scene. This is our moment to show them a better way of being. You may not believe it yet, but I am all in. Can you meet us halfway? Cassandra held his gaze, and for one brief moment, he saw the glimmer of hope beneath her uncertainty. Halfway seems a bit optimistic, she jested lightly, yet he could sense a serious commitment behind her teasing tone. Then let us take it one step at a time, he responded. With your heart in it, maybe we all have a chance. Before she could reply, Sarah joined them, her expression unreadable. "I'm cautiously optimistic. But let's see where this goes," she said, her voice steady. The sound of the twins giggling was infectious. As they swirled together, the old tears, the accusations, and the frustrations began to lift, light as mist. One step, one dance at a time, they could forge a path forward. Would all this work? Could they truly build a unified family? Jake dared to believe it could, tethered by the joyful laughter of children who yearned for love and connection above all. Together, they moved to the center of the makeshift dance floor, as the music pulsed around them. In that space, memories of yesterday mingled seamlessly with dreams of tomorrow. Tomorrows filled with laughter, with shared snacks, and with arms tightly wrapped around one another, a family redefining itself amid their many pasts. Jake took a deep breath and looked around at the faces he held dear. "All right, let us do this," he exclaimed, the sunlight breaking through the clouds of their emotional storm. This was at the beginning of a new journey. With that, the music swelled, and the laughter echoed, wrapping them all in a warm embrace. It wasn't perfect, but they were together, each heartbeat a reminder that love sometimes meant taking that first step. And as they danced among the warmth and joy, Jake felt something shift deep within him. The past no longer defined him, and the future felt increasingly bright. Maybe, just maybe, they were on the brink of something beautiful. So, if you felt the power of this transformation, subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and comment your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible journey, because this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second. True fans understand the importance of lifting each other up through these actions.